What is the admission cost to come to the concert?
The admission is free.
Wow, that is really a deal.
Mm-hmm. No admission to this particular. Matter of fact, all of our events are typically free.
Does that also go for membership in the American Guild?
To be a member, it's roughly, I think it's about an $80 membership a year, and that includes the magazine, which is a monthly magazine that we get from the Washington headquarters, as well as a seasonal newsletter to let our members know what we have going on, and the $80 membership also includes all the workshops and educational components that our chapter provides.
In your opinion, would you say that someone who is relatively new to being a church organist would benefit from joining the American Guild?
Definitely. It's a wonderful way to meet colleagues. I find the social component is really invaluable, as well as the educational component. I mean, I learned so much from my colleagues. Wonderful pieces to play with my choir, wonderful pieces of music to play as a prelude or postlude. And then there's also, sometimes you might need a substitute when you're going on vacation. Well, it's nice to have that social network. And if you're a new musician starting out, you may not have that regular Sunday gig, but you may want to sub out. And organists are always looking for people like that to help them so they can take a vacation every now and then.
Well, we have been focusing for the most part on church organists, but do you have organists for other organizations that choose to join the American Guild of Organists?
We definitely have organists of all types. I will say that typically membership includes church organists, although we also have members in the guild from synagogues and also organists that may play theater organs like you may have at the Rialto. So the repertoire that we typically, at least in our chapter, emphasizes that of a more sacred nature, but I can't say that that's true for the guild as a whole.
Our guest today is George Tarasuk, who is the Dean of the Southwest Chapter of the American Guild of Organists. He is also organist and choir master at the Episcopal Church of the Transfiguration in Palos Park, Illinois. George, tell me about your duties as a church organist and choir master. Does that fit in nicely with what you're learning at the Guild?
Well, it does, actually. Very interestingly, much of the work of an organist is spent outside of the church, really. I mean, much of my time is practicing and planning here at home. An organist is also very familiar with the church calendar and able to choose hymns, anthems, preludes, and postludes based on the readings for a particular Sunday. A good organist is not only a performer, but he's also an educator, a good businessman who knows how to plan his time, work within a budget, promote and attract people to the choir, and to some extent, you also have to be a pretty good politician, because if you don't know how to work with people, you're not going to have a successful program. As far as my connection with the Guild, many of the workshops that we have, for example, last year we had a technology workshop that I hosted at my church, and much of it was how to be a good planner, how to use the computer to help plan your Sunday music, how to search the internet for free music, all the various websites that are out there that can really be of a great advantage to an organist that many of us don't know about.
Do you also find that many of the organists also double as a pianist?
In fact, I would probably venture to guess that many organists out there today do not have formal organ training, but I would bet you that they would at least have some training on the piano. So more so than not, the typical organist is a pianist, not an organist.
There are so many different types of organs, everything from the pipe organ that we love to hear that just rattles one's bones, all the way to a small one that might be found in someone's living room. How do you teach people to be proficient on all of the various types of organs?
Well, as far as the pipe organ, the organs that we have in churches usually follow a specific spec that we call it. It's actually referred to as the AGO spec. So no matter what church organ you are sitting at, it will typically have the same number of keys. It will have, it'll be situated as such so the pedals feel as comfortable from one organ to the next.
Much like driving a car, there are some differences, for example, between a Ford and a Chevy, but everything is pretty much the same.
Everything is pretty much the same.
Is it difficult to move from organ to organ and church to church, or do you ever have a reason to do that?
Well, for example, at the church that I play on what is referred to as a tracker organ. The only electric it has is for the blower that's blowing the air through the pipes. But when I press a key, it moves a lever that moves another lever that allows the air to flow through the pipe. So therefore, when I press the key, there's a little bit of tension that you won't have on, let's say, an electronic organ, such as the Alborn Galanti that will be playing at St. Paul's on the 19th. It's probably a little easier to play on an electronic organ, although many organists do like the tracker because it's kind of like driving stick shift. You really get that immediate sense of being connected to the sound as it's being produced. And many organists really prefer playing on the tracker. I will say that when I go to other churches that have a larger instrument, the instrument that I play on has 9 ranks of pipes. That's a relatively small instrument. When I go to churches with much bigger instruments, I really have to know a little bit about the registration, so I know exactly how I'm going to make that organ sound. And not only that, but it also changes the kind of repertoire that I'll be able to play. On the instrument that I have at my church, it's relatively small size, allows me to play some very charming pieces of music, but definitely leaves me out of French Romantic music, which demands a much larger instrument and typically a much larger building as well.
Do you have a special favorite hymn, piece of music that you like most of all to play on the organ?
Wow. That's a really great question. Yeah. I hate when people ask me that question because it's so difficult to answer. I love music from all periods. I love hymns. I love sacred and secular music. I just love music in general. And to be so specific as to a particular piece of music would leave out everything else, and I probably wouldn't be able to answer that.
Well said. Our guest today is organist George Tarasuk, who is the Dean of the Southwest Chapter of the American Guild of Organists. He is also organist and choir master at the Episcopal Church of the Transfiguration in Palos Park, Illinois.